Welcome to Around the Fencepost, where grit meets growth, stories spark change, and real conversations build stronger farms and futures.
This, guys, is going to be part 2 of the interview with Casey Seber from Mountain Meadow Ag. Casey, I appreciate your time again, being able to work with me twice on this subject. I know how wide open you were last week with the trade show on top of all the work, and then a couple other days. Man, today we want to talk about the drone side of the business. We want to talk about the side of the building of the business on the drone side, more so the lessons learned from that and how that can be applicable for other people that are interested in getting into that business, and also the future and viability of people going into the drone service, and whether it all pencils out and what that feedback looks like from your end. But just to give everybody a quick recap, we covered the podcast that's dropping that we recorded a week ago is talking quite a bit about your start in your own business and how you got there. I think the reel that has been circulated that seems like the one that's gaining the most traction is just the ordained thing we talked about on feeling like something is God's timing, God's plan, and that piece of the way you have embraced for a what'd you call yourself last week on the tech part? You had a word for it.
Y'all, I don't even know, man. What did I call myself?
A pad and pencil farmer or something.
Oh yeah. Paper and pencil guy. Yeah.
And yeah, like that's probably to me one of the, I'm not a tech person. Like this thing right here in my face is way outside my comfort zone as far as just knowing how to hook up and operate. I have to ask a lot of questions of people that do know. And that's really what I'm assuming you did, but walk me through that. I guess the I said that wrong, didn't I? DJI dealers, they will actually provide training. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep. So some of them, not all of them. I was very particular about when. I mean, I didn't know anything about it, right? I seen one reel, and then that's when I dug deep. And at that time, DJI really was the only spray drone on the market. And so the T50 wasn't even released yet. I didn't know anything about a T50. So T40, and then there was T30s and T10s, kind of size differences. The T30 and the T40 are close, similar in size, but the T30 definitely had its issues, and the T40 was proving to be a really good drone. Then it came down to, you really had, there's probably more, but like 5 guys that was selling drones at the time. I chose to go through a gentleman in Indiana, Brock Buckner, super good Christian man. I connected with him right away on the phone because I had a gazillion questions before I was going to go out and spend 40 grand on a drone, and I talked to some other dealers, and I just kept coming right back to Brock. And Brock actually flew out. Once my drone got here, Brock flew out to Utah, and we killed 2 birds with one stone. We did a demo day, right? So he's teaching me about the drone, and also a crowd of people that I put on this demo day for, which was good and bad, because it was more of a marketing thing for me. So I was busy doing, like, getting people lunch and making sure everybody was having a good time and making sure everything was running smooth. So I didn't get a listen as good as I should have on how to run the drone. Our first job when we went out, I think I told you, it was a 550-acre job. It took us 2.5 weeks to finish that job, just because the learning curve with the drones, man, there's a lot to it. And we didn't know how to fast charge our batteries. Our generator was being a piece of junk. It was a brand new generator. It just would get the like the CO2. It had a meter on it, and if the wind was blowing into itself, it would shut down. And then it's this process to get going again and then get charging. And if any drone operators are listening to this, a day you have to wait on batteries is the longest day of your life. And that's how it was. We were just waiting on batteries all day, every day. And so, yeah, man, I should have just had a one-on-one with Brock instead of trying to kill two birds with one stone. But by that time, I had so many jobs like lined up before I even flew the drone that I wanted to do a demo day and learn at the same time. Yeah, it's kind of funny.
I like the optimism. That's something as aggressive as it kind of goes right up my alley. I can go from either very cautious to wide open, like, oh, this is going to be good.
Yeah, right, right. I don't know, man. It's like time is so precious. It really is. And so trying to, I find myself, I need to slow down, honestly. Time is so precious. But at the same time, it's like I don't want to let my customers down. I tell them, I book them on the schedule, and then you have a weather day. And then your time comes this much tighter, and then you have another weather day, and then it's that much tighter. And so I feel like sometimes I run so thin, just trying to accommodate to my customer, which because their job is important. They hired me for a reason. So yeah, I find myself doing that all the time, just trying to jam as much. I mean, here I am waiting to fill up with water. I text you this morning, hey man, I can get on at 7:30. You said, hell, I'm busy too. How about 7:45? And here we go. So
And yeah, and sometimes it just got to be like that. And I appreciate you getting time because like you said, I didn't get that text on Friday. I was like, gosh, I wonder what I said.
well, I'll tell you what it was is talking about schedules, right? Friday, it was a beautiful day, finally, like a breakout day. The drones were finding their rhythm. We were spraying acres. Friday, my son had a baseball tournament Friday, Saturday. I'm the coach of their little traveling team. I don't know how, but they came from Wayne County, which is about a 3-hour drive from where I live to down here in St. George where we're working. Well, we were getting acres and I was pushing that envelope. I was working as long as I could until I had to like shut it down to be there in time. And so in between dropping the trailer off Friday and hauling butt up to the baseball diamond, I was texting and driving and sent you that text, but I never hit send. And I never realized I never hit send because then it was just more text that I was responding to, you know. And then I got thinking this morning, like, I never heard back from Jake. And so I looked it up and I never sent you the text. So, yeah.
It was perfect. And it almost kind of piggybacks to what you were just talking about with taking care of your customers. There's always that, hey, I need to make sure my guys are taken care of. So this was and I'll keep it somewhat brief so we can get back on topic. But so this morning, my girls that we homeschool, my girls were talking about their words. So we started talking and somehow it came up talking about other countries and stuff, and I let some of my more libertarian leanings come out of, hey, take care of what's going on at home. And my son, who is Captain Literal, I think he's close to the same age as your boy, he's 11,
Yeah.
everything is literal, like means what exactly you said. So he's like, well, why do you go and help people with seed and what? Well, that's a business, first of all. I said, second of all, I'd give advice if somebody called me and just wanted advice. I'm happy to do that, but the business is that I have to sell seed to make any money, is the way we're
Right.
set up. And so this whole conversation continues further. So I explained to him, and I'm sure I've had this conversation before, but we explained that you're either selling your time for money or you're selling your goods or service for money. And I said, and then I quoted that line from McClintock. Do you remember the John Wayne movie where he's talking to his daughter and he's telling her how he works for everyone?
Yeah. Ish. I don't remember it word for word, but I love that show.
So yeah, so I did that, not word for word, but I explained what that meant as a business owner, as someone that that's our responsibility if we want to keep that customer, our responsibility is to make sure we're giving them the highest level of service that we can provide, and to, not only just give them the service to in the sale, but give them the service before and after the sale as well. So I think it sunk in a little bit this morning, but it was a very good conversation on the subject that you had touched. So I wanted to bring that
Yeah,
up because it was right in line. That's the business when you are a self-employed, or have your own business. That you're either selling a goods or a service, and if you want people to
right.
come back, it's got to be good goods and service.
Well, and not to stay off topic, but your boy's 11, my boy's 11, my daughter's 10. How fun is it that they actually see what we're doing, and they actually see, and they're kind of like a sponge, they soak it in. I mean, my boy was very much an introvert. My daughter's always been an extrovert. And now watching my boy, like we just had a growers meeting, and my boy does not like crowds. He's really smart business wise, but it's up to me to like kind of poke and prod him and put him in front of people. And I mean, I'm always game to talk wherever, I won't say I don't get nervous, but it's more of I like the challenge. I like to be uncomfortable, and I'm trying to instill that into my boy. I want him to be his own person by all means. But at that growers meeting, I told him he was going to get up and speak. There was like 20, 25 people there, and I told him he was going to get up and speak, and he was like, "Yep, that sounds good." Scared to death, and he did. And I mean, it was just after we had that conversation, he's like, "This is that wasn't so bad." He started his own little lawn mowing business that turned out to be a pretty good little business, and so it kind of went in line with Mountain Meadow Ag, and because it's our little small town, and so it was fun for him to be able to get up there and talk to him or talk to our customer base that showed up to the meeting. And I don't know, man. That's almost as much fun to me now as being able to instill that into my kids. Um, just the values of being, it's not about making money. It's about getting that relationship and keeping that relationship and doing the good for your customer. They're not a customer. They're now your friend, and he's kind of followed suit with that. And so it's been fun.
Yeah, that is a big deal, and yeah, I love it that you're making him get up and talk some. That's pretty. That's a neat way to. Yeah, I like that a lot. We just wrapped up county public speaking here. My oldest, well, and I have twin girls that are 10, to go
Nice.
with him, and they all just competed at county
We got to
for
get
it,
you
and
out
it's
here to Lake Powell
exactly,
with your family.
there's so. Hey, I saw that picture you put on back in the summer when you and your boy skipped church to go fishing, and I thought, golly, that's a good place to go to church too.
Your whole
Don't tell
family
the
and
bishop.
my kids are right. No kidding. That's exactly what my wife said. She's like, you can't advertise that. I'm like, you know what? I can, because I'm the same way, right? I mean, I'm the same way uh, with, uh, I guess, religion as I am. I'm just me. And so I'm going to say it. I don't need to
Yes.
hide behind it that I went fishing with my son because my time, like we said, my time is valuable. My son wanted to go fishing. The only day I had was on Sunday. So if that means we skipped church that day, that means we skipped church that day. And that's okay. I'm not going to hide behind the fact, you know, but not everybody's
Yeah.
that way. It's and I'm not saying that that's the right way. I'm just saying I'm not ashamed of that. But
Right. And
yeah,
we only
that's
get
fun,
we only get so many of these years.
right?
Our boys at their age, we've got 5 more years that are similar to what they are, and 7 more years total. And yes, I hope that I have the relationship with my son that I have with my dad, and I hope that you have with your dad. But
Correct.
it's different. It's a different relationship than it was when I was 11. It's a different relationship than it
Yeah.
was when I was 15 or 16.
Yep.
So yeah, you only got so long, and that's that's the long and short. But
Yeah.
what I'll bring us back on topic now, because
There we go. Probably a
we
good
we
idea.
both obviously. So which model did you wind up starting out with? Was that the 40 then, the TG
Yeah.
or the DJ? Yeah, I don't know
Yep.
why I'm blanking. I've known this because
That's all
I've been
right.
on a mailing list from 3 different dealers for a year. So
Yeah. Yeah. So DJI, or not Talos, Agris DJI. So it's a little different than like the DJI camera drones you see. Same thing, same DJI software, but then yeah, Talos is it's a or not Talos. I keep saying now you got me going off. Agris,
I'm sorry.
DJI Agris. No, you're good. You're good. Totally. There's so many of them now. Talos. I don't know if you've seen that. The T60, and now DJI's got a T100, and then the Black Betties come out and XD. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them now. At conference, man, it was, throw a dart in any corner and it was a new drone. So it's cool. I mean, DJI
So
has put spray drones on the map for sure.
so when you were, because you spoke at this conference here, and it's only
Huh?
been what, 3 weeks or so?
Man, I
Weren't
don't
you a
even know
speaker
what
at
day
that
of the week it
conference in
is right
Kansas
now,
City?
but yeah, it's got to be 3 weeks ago, probably. Yeah.
So you were kind of hinting about big things coming. There was some talk about an American made drone coming down the pike that I was seeing on Facebook? Is that part of what you're talking about? Or
Yeah. Yeah. So it's been, I thought I was going to be able to
what
share a
can
little
I ask
sooner.
with this, Casey?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll tiptoe around a few things, but I mean, you'll get the gist of it, right?
Okay.
And and I don't know how much I can say about one yet, but yes, XD drones is going to be, they are US made drones, like through and through, made in Detroit, Michigan. They are a cool drone. And with talking with Mike at XD, he says, they're like 3 years behind China right now, and he won't deny that they're behind China. That the U.S. is behind China. What he's trying to do is to mitigate. It will never be the front runners in the U.S. on drones, and we all acknowledge that. So what he's trying to do is mitigate that from 3 years to 1 year, and how we're going to do that is they're going to release these drones to the market. There's going to be a handful of guys that gets a drone and put that drone through the test of what, like we have T50s now and T40s, and now we're going to get one of these XD drones and we're going to test the crap out of it, and we're going to report back to XD and say, hey, it doesn't do this well, or it doesn't do this well or as good, but it does this really good. Kind of keep a running tally on trying to get better. And through the years, maybe we can mitigate that 3 year lag between US and China. But like I told Mike, like the T50 now, the T50, well, I mean, I still run T40s. Let me back it up. In fact, I just made a video last week about the T40 that could. I went out to the conference, talked to hundreds of people, and that's always the question. Oh, what kind of drone do you run? And I'll be like, yeah, we got 40s and T50s, and everybody was like, what? You're still running the T40? I'm like, I every day. I love my T40. Now it's a drone that you have to pilot. You can't just press go and let it do its thing. You have to pilot that drone. It's not as smart as even the T50. The T50 is not as smart as the T. The EA Vision is proving. I wouldn't say the J100 was a great drone. It's probably like the T40. The J100 is a good drone that you just have to pilot. The J150, from what I've heard and what I've seen, I've never really been around it personally, but they seem like a pretty good drone. You're starting to see drones be like Ford, Chevy, Dodge. or ram, I should say.
Mm.
Pick the color you like, basically. I think they're all going to do a great job. But um, yeah, that I kind of lost where I was going. I went off on a tangent. But what was your question? I
Well,
guess.
no, that was it. Like, what's new? And that's the
Got you.
Exity company. That
That's right.
that answered really, I guess, the surface level question I had.
Yeah,
So everything
yeah.
you're giving me is great.
So then back that up to
Because yeah,
that's where we were going, like dropping hints. I had that. So Exity is a new drone, which to me is the biggest like shocking factor that I came back with the conference out of all the drones. But then right in line with that is going to be the Series Air, the Black Betty, the biggest drone on the market. It has a 40-gallon tank. Well, it will have a 40-gallon tank. It's got a 36-gallon tank that's approved right now. They say it will do a swath width of 50 feet, a 50-foot swath. Now, granted, I don't know. They're doing testing on it right now to make sure that 50 feet is an accurate swath. I know for a fact it'll do 40 feet, which is huge. The T40s and the T50 were flying between 25 and 28-foot swaths. And it's only got a 10.5-gallon tank. So you go to a 40-foot swath with a 40-gallon tank, and that one drone takes the place of 2.5 drones. It's going to be a game changer. And we were fortunate enough that this is kind of the big thing I've been hinting at. We were fortunate enough they picked, I think, 20, call it a super user, 20 super users between Brazil, Australia, and the United States. And Mountain Meadow Ag was chose as one of those super users to put a Black Betty into the fleet. And same thing, there's a program. I gotta tell them, what I like, what I don't like. And obviously, I'm not a drone dealer. I can sell them. But as a super user, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to promote this Black Betty to sell the Black Betty. My sole role is testing. Test, 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 and report. Well, it's going to be interesting to see, man. I mean, you know, out here in the West is completely different than the Midwest. We're going to find out real soon. I think my Black Betty comes in the next couple weeks. We'll see if there's a spot out here in the West for a drone that big. I think there is in certain applications, but like the stuff we're doing right now, it's in the cliffs, it's in the rocks, it's very, very hard terrain. I don't know if a big drone with a 40-gallon tank is the ticket for that. Maybe so. And I don't think they know either. And that's why maybe that's one of the reasons they chose me to be a super user, is because they want to find out if a drone that big can handle the tough terrain, or if it is specifically a row crop, fungicide, low gallon per acre rate. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. 2026 is going to be really interesting. So we're excited though.
and that brought up a couple things I hadn't thought about. Obviously, with more weight, I would expect more wear and tear on the rotors and all those parts. Right, if it's got to hold more weight in the air, it should put more torque on the bearing or whatever whatever's up through the center of the. That's interesting because I'm thinking now, how harder is it harder for them to stop suddenly if they're going full tilt across the field and then they have to pull up suddenly? Do they have
Right?
like is it like a boat where they just keep going through the waves and then you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very, very good point. I had the same concerns, but everything is beefier. I mean, you see the size of the motor on this Black Betty and it looks like Hulk's fist. I mean, it is ginormous. It's 3 times the size of my T50 motor. But they've tested it. They've been doing, I mean, very, very technical testing, and it's ready for market. So I think, in fact, I never did hear, maybe that's good or bad, I don't know, but they were going to full speed this Black Betty at a telephone pole just to see if it would break, because it's using LiDAR, radar, all the technology, And I never did hear if it ended up hitting, which, mind you, it'll be 40 miles an hour, which is crazy, crazy, crazy. 40 miles an hour head on at a power pole. And I don't know, I never did hear if it braked in time or if it did, in fact, hit the pole. I'm not sure. I haven't heard. I would assume that it braked, or else I think they would have told us, hey, maybe don't go full speed at a power pole, but I don't know. I need to check up on that and see where we ended on that. But
It's also some really interesting. That was an interesting comment about, just even your terrain. So even knowing your ideal customer would almost play into this. If you've got to know who you're servicing, if you're looking at getting in this business, it sounds to me like you need to know who you're taking care of, because if you're not dealing with 100 or 1,000 acre fields, and I'd say 100 is way low, but if you're not taking
yeah.
care of 1,000 acre fields consistently, you may as well have a mid-size with um, the 50 or 40 and that in that ballpark, right?
Yeah.
And not spend that extra money, because you need the versatility you can get from doing a smaller place. Does that sound fair?
Oh, 100%, man. I think so. The way I model my business is I want to bring my customers the best we have to offer. Now, that means I have to stay, on the back end that you don't see. The unsexy side of the business, I guess, is the research and what goes in late hours of reading up on this and reading up on that, even down to the chemicals and adjuvants that we're applying, the different seed mixes that are going to work in this spot versus this spot, and then down to the drone where, hey, you know, people look at the T40 as the dinosaur of the drone world, but the T40 is a proven drone. And I know that because we've done swath testing. We've done all of that. Does it fly slower? It sure does. Can you not spray as wide? Absolutely. But I know what those parameters are for that drone, and we won't ever expect anything more out of that drone. We just know what that drone does. You know what I mean? So now circling back to these big drones, they're flying fast. See, the coolest thing about a drone is you get that prop wash. It comes out, if you've seen the videos, it comes out and then that chemical is actually coming up. So like spider mites, right? We'll just use spider mites as an example. Spider mites live underneath the leaf of a corn. And so drones are doing such a phenomenal job at mitigating spider mites because that chemical is actually coming up underneath. Orchards is the same way. You can go and hover over those orchard trees and you're getting a full exposure of chemicals to both the top and underside of the leaves and branches. We get into these bigger drones, they're flying so fast, they don't get that vortex. So that's something we have to be aware of, that hey, the drone might fly 40 miles an hour and that's going to be great, but are we going to apply it at 40 miles an hour? No, because at that point you just as well hire a helicopter or an airplane. You're not getting the results. You're not getting what you're paying for. Because typically, will be a little more money than a plane or a helicopter in most applications. Not by a lot. I'm not saying drones do a better job. I'm just saying they do a different job. So that's something we're going to have to play with. That's something we're going to have to test. And I don't want my customers paying for a drone job and not getting the full drone results. So it'll be interesting to see if these faster, bigger drones will still be cranking out that many acres that they claim, even when we slow it down. You know, and I'm sure they will. I mean, a 40-gallon tank is huge. Then you run into battery issues. Is the battery going to stay charged long enough to drain a 40-gallon tank? See, the Exidy is right in line. The Exidy is a U.S. version of what we're already flying. So I'm really, really excited about getting my hands on an Exidy. One, because it's U.S. made. I mean, who doesn't want to support US made products. But two, that opens up a whole nother ball of wax for these government jobs that you can't use Chinese drones on. You know, it's our hands are tied on a lot of jobs only because our current drones are Chinese. So it'll be
I
cool.
actually
I'm
got an
excited.
email. Yeah, it should be. That is a that yeah, I'm almost having questions coming from your responses because this is so much good information that from somebody not inside the drones didn't realize, I guess is the best way to say it. Um and that is that's important. Important to get to a couple of them, so I'll try to make sure I say them correctly so it makes sense to
Yeah,
you. So if we're talking about speed changing the way this rotor wash, of course, works, and then how good of an application, because I had often wondered why we weren't just seeing more. And don't get me wrong, it feels like in our area the crop duster crowd, the helicopters. There's one around here, and he's always every fall or summer in where we live we get really bad on southern rust coming up through our corn crop.
yeah,
So that is like the big thing. And usually when you call, we're going to be done chopping before he would even be there,
yeah,
kind of deal. So it hasn't, that kind of thing is one that plays in where he just stays that busy, but there's only the one in the area. And then, of course, you've got your crop duster plane. And I don't know if he's still going. There was one that crashed and died not a couple counties over not long ago. So I think I like that side for drones too, because,
yeah.
it's a lot more fun to crazy fly if you're on the ground.
Right.
You mentioned the batteries a couple of times. What is the recommendation? What do you try to go to the field with how many? Because the videos I've watched, there's basically going to be like 4 or 5 of them, and they'll rotate them out just as quick as they're filling the tank up. They're rotating the battery out and then using the freshest one.
Correct. So typically on most applications, a lot of guys run 2 gallons. We we never run 2 gallon per acre. Now, granted, we have 10 and a half, 11 gallon tank, so when we run 2.5 gallons, we're running that tank out faster than you would at 2 gallons. But I feel like we get better coverage at 2.5 gallons. Sometimes we have to go 5 gallons. Now, what that does is that means the battery's not dead, but it still takes, if you land the drone at 50%, then you can't give it a full load at 50% to go back out. So we're swapping a battery every time we're loading. And what that does is once you get a couple hours into the job, you've depleted. I like to run 3 batteries, and the most efficient way is to run 3 batteries. When you get to where you're doing short runs or the drone's coming back sooner than, say, that 9-10 minute mark, that's when you need a fourth battery. And when you jump up into 5 gallons an acre, that's what Spider Mites is. That's what this Rejuva project is. At 5 gallons an acre, man, it's really tough. That's where the big drones come in handy, is because they're going to be able to pack more. Battery management is the key to a successful drone operation. You have to know not every run, not every flight you do is going to be a full load. I don't even really know how to explain it. I try to explain it to my new hires, and the only way to explain it is to just be there and just watch the drone, watch your battery level, because every flight is different, and it's kind of the same thing on bringing it home. You're not going to bring it home empty every time. They're at the very end of a field and now you ran out of chemical and you have to ferry, a half mile back to the trailer just to reload. Well, that's not efficient. You just as well leave 2 gallons in the tank when you're closer to your reload position and come and reload, swap a battery. You know what I mean? It's Everybody's different. I talk to a lot of guys out to conference and they're like, oh, yeah, it doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't you spray out your tank and then still ferry? And, that works for them. That's great for us. Yeah, it does. It does kind of shorten that battery window, but I don't know. We have 4 batteries. We can pull out a fifth battery for each drone if we have to. Most of the time, out here in the West, we're not dealing with 500 acre swaths. I mean, we're or not swaths, but 500 acre fields at a time. Our most of our fields, some of them, we get into corn season and we're doing 200 acre pivots or 100 acre pivots, and that is when we would kind of maybe switch gears and do something different there as far as battery management. But typically, we're 40, 50, 60 acre fields, and so it works for us. How we do what we do is completely different to a guy that's in Indiana. you know it's completely different. But when you move, like, we'll oftentimes land our drones up on the top deck, and then we'll fly with the field. We'll pick the longest run if we can, but sometimes it's a shorter run, but the road goes along the field, and so we can pick up and move as we go down the field, so we mitigate our ferry distance, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah. So
It
every
does.
field's different.
That makes a lot of sense, actually, and that's interesting because it made me kind of think about the average size. And I don't really have a whole lot of row crop guys that I deal with anyway, except for ones that want cover crops. Most of mine, my products are going to be high energy digestible forages, so I'm typically taking care of your livestock guys, and that's kind of laugh that they pasture the ground that they consider not good enough to farm sometimes, and that's it's frustrating when I'm over here going, this is a crop, and right now with the
Right.
price of cattle, this is your best crop, so you
Yeah.
better take care of it.
The price of cattle versus the price of corn, isn't that something?
But it's funny, and we mentioned the biologicals a little bit last week, but it's funny on the side of a lot of guys just need something small, but they don't want to pay for a spray coop to come in their field, or they don't want to have to deal with opening the fences. For come to think of it, they might just be
Right.
like, it's back there, and to not have to deal with it and have that option. Army worms are something we deal with in here, and you mentioned the sugar cane. Well, you mentioned the spider,
Spider
the
mites.
spider aphid, but we have sugarcane aphids here. Is it gets bad, and especially, and we have traits that obviously will mitigate it now with the summer annuals, but people still will choose not to, and then they're having to go against that. So just different things that we run into in the summer. And again, people are either sitting there going, well, it's nothing I can do about it. I don't have a sprayer, and I don't want to pay them to come out here for 13 acres down there by that creek. So
Right. Yeah, there's
I
a
think
go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that just even listening, I think that leaves up open a heck of an opportunity for that mid-sized drone. And I don't know if it's just my area or what, because again, if you just go on Facebook Marketplace, it looks like we're surrounded by dealers here. And I get, like I said, there's a couple I actually have signed up for a couple of their seminars and get emails from.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of used T40s and T50s on marketplace right now that aren't a bad price if somebody wanted to be in that business.
And I get asked out here in Utah, it's really taking traction. To my knowledge, we were the first full-time drone applicators in Utah. I know that there's a company in the northern part of the state, but technically they were Idaho. So I should look at this because I use this frame all the time, that we're the I use this term all the time, that we're the pioneers in Utah in the drone game. But now, man, you can point a finger in any direction, and there's a guy with a drone that started the business. And last year there was a ton of people that started, and I don't know. It didn't take for him. I now see those guys trying to sell their equipment, and a lot of different reasons can go into that. Talking about business, but I get asked still, like, what would you do if I was to start a business? How would you do it? And I always tell them, well, there's no sense in going out and buying the biggest, baddest drone on the market because that drone's not going to be able to service a lot of the areas. Find a really good deal on a T40. Is it the best drone on the market? No, it's not. It's not. It really isn't. But it is a drone that works. Now, you're going to also have to work. It's not a jump up on the flight deck and hit go and you're spraying. That's not how it works. Everybody thinks that they're going to get a drone and go make a grundle of money. That's not how it works, man. I mean, you've been in agriculture for a long time. Same thing as a grower, same thing as an applicator, same thing as anything in agriculture. They're long days. The term that always gets said is you got to make hay when it rains and or make hay when the sun shines. Sorry. That's,
I knew what
I
you were
mean,
saying.
yeah, that's honestly, I mean, my guys, I expect a lot out of my guys, but oftentimes we're up at 5 o'clock in the morning and we don't get home until, if we're out of town, then we shut down at dark, we hit the hotel. But where we live, we're a couple hours out of the way. So we won't get home. I mean, shoot, in the summer, it doesn't get dark till 9 o'clock. So that puts us not home until 11, sometimes midnight, and we're right back up at 5 o'clock to stay on schedule. You know, now winter time, that's where we get a goof off a little more, but not, I say that, but this winter, my poor guys, man, they have been run ragged all year. I think that rain day we had the other day was a good thing. I think it was a really good thing. They ought to come hang out at the trade show, just take a breath. But it's, yeah, I mean, it's not for the faint of heart. You got to have the will to do it because, I mean, I always go back to this, but you start not being able to make it when you say you're going to make it, and your name gets thrown around pretty easy
Yeah,
at the coffee shop in the morning. You know,
yeah.
it's,
That's true in all businesses, but it's really true in ag because it's such a small community.
yeah, I don't know. I think people they see, I like to use this term because it grabs attention, but they see the sexy side of the business. And the sexy side is the flashy trucks and the flashy trailers and the flashy drones and having the latest and greatest, not just in the drone business. You see it in all businesses. Everybody wants the sexy side of the business. In all actuality, you could very easily go. I mean, there's guys, I don't recommend mixing out of ICB totes because I personally don't feel like you get a good mixture in your chemical. But an ICB tote is cheap. Can you pump out of an ICB tote? Absolutely. But you're going to want to check your job. You're going to want to check and make sure that what you're mixing and applying is actually doing the job. You know, but you could get in the drone game. It's not going to be as sexy. It's not going to be as flashy, but you could use your everyday truck. You could go buy a used T40 drone. You could get a couple ICB totes and a pump, and you're in business. I mean,
Yeah.
it's as easy as that. You don't have to have a $50,000 trailer. You don't have to have a $75,000 drone and accessories. If you're going to spend the money on anything, I would say 100% buy the best generator you can afford. Buy a diesel generator that's going to last, that's quiet, because we ran gas generators from when we first started, and that will tire you out more listening to that thing rumble all day versus hustling all day.
We're gonna circle back to the difference on the manual drones and auto drones. Do you think it's a little bit of for you? Do you think it's a little bit of the, I grew up with a manual pickup truck and this is what I like, or a old mechanical shifter tractor versus a power shift? Do you think it's one of those type of things, or do you genuinely like the entire piece better? And part of the reason, like the landing, all that stuff that now I think, and I don't know, I gotta my mom got me a picture drone for Christmas, and I haven't even taken it out of the box yet, which is terrible because I want to play with it. But a couple of days I've thought about getting to it. It was going to get cold, but then the range thing came into mind for me, and I thought, well, do the ones with the auto stuff, can they go away further from their controller or?
It seems to me that the general consensus that they all have about the same range. Some stay connected better than others. The thing I love about DJI is we have a relay. Now, it's just one more thing you got to buy, right? But we have a relay that we can go set. I don't know if you've seen pictures. We put them relays up in some pretty funny places. There's a picture of me climbing this big old cedar tree, and I'm holding it at the top of the tree and then still holding it because there was no access to get in to finish like 6 acres of a job. And so I just sat up there in the top of a cedar tree holding our relay on like a 10-foot pole, and we maintained connection and everything was great. But I think, we're kind of the exception to the rule. Most typically, we don't have to put our relays up every single day. It's just when you are on those really long stretches or hilly terrain or cliffy terrain, that's when the relays come into play. I think all the drones today have a really good connectivity. It's just a matter of maintaining that line of sight. And I mean, the argument still is DJI versus EA Vision versus XAG versus all of these drones, right? And I'll be 100% honest with you. In my opinion, right, minus the DJI scare that, DJIs are going to be banned, it's not necessarily DJI. That's just the poster child for the ban. It's all Chinese. All Chinese drones are experiencing. Okay, if they're approved now, I think it was January 3rd. If they were approved by January 3rd, they are legal. Anything after January 3rd, if it's a Chinese drone, will not be approved on the FCC list. So I think that being said, still the DJI, all of these drones are chasing the DJI. They want to be better than the DJI. And so in my argument out there at the conference, it was funny. Like, okay, great. That sounds like a really great drone, but what's its end goal? Its end goal is to be DJI or be better than DJI. So why wouldn't you just go to DJI? You know what I mean? And so now I'm excited to get my hands on like the Black Betty because I've not been around it. It just got released. I'm excited to see if they have captured that, if they are now as good or better than DJI. In years past, it hasn't been the case. Nobody's been able to catch, in my opinion. People will argue about this all day long, but that's in my opinion. So yes, I guess to answer that question, circle back to answer that question, I don't know if it's so much as far as the DJI versus EA Vision versus XAG, what drone is better, what drone has better connectivity. I think they're all pretty close.
Does the expansion of Starlink, is that going to make any or much difference with the drone services across the really remote parts of the country, which you're kind of in as far as that goes, but those big areas, the big spaces that are out west, do we think that that's going to change a lot more? There he is. Can you hear me? Casey, can you hear me? Casey. Now that's ironic. That was in the middle of me asking a question about Starlink.
Yeah, that's funny. I hope that didn't just screw up the whole recording.
Oh no, well we can edit this. If you want to call it a wrap right there, I'll put an end to it. And man, I don't know. I've been enjoying these, and I'm like over here like let's plan. I don't know what when you get your new ones in, and I'm still recording, so it's got. I'm sure it's picking you up on the mic, but if you
Perfect.
wanted to do one here in about 4 or 5 months from now, after you've had a chance to try those new ones out, Exidy and Black Betty, out on the some of your corn crops and different things like that, that'd be really cool to get an update on that here in a couple months.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Let's plan for it. Let's get our feet wet with these drones, and I'll be able to report full on. 4 or 5 months from now, we'll be hot and heavy into. We'll have gone through our grasshopper season. We'll be into our spider mite season, and I'll really be able to give you some honest feedback on the big drone and on the U.S. drone. Kids, and I don't want to talk crap on any manufacturer, right? The one drone that says that it's U.S. made right now, and folks listening to this know what I'm talking about, and I don't want to talk crap because I don't personally have firsthand experience with it, but it is just not up to par of what these other drones are. And so I'm really excited to see a U.S. drone come to market and be able to compete with a Chinese drone. I'm really, really excited. I hope it is what they claim to be, and I think it is. I think Exidy has done a really good job. But yeah, in 4 or 5 months, man, I'll be able to tell you exactly what I think. And both manufacturers want me to be open and honest about what I think. So I think I won't get my head slapped if I say I love it or I don't love it. But that'll come straight from me, and it'll be 100% honest. So.
Yeah, and I think well, hopefully all of us, because it's definitely the way you grow, but hopefully they're going to just take everything as that's a good piece of feedback. We hadn't considered that yet. Let's see what these other folks are saying. If they're having the same thing, we can make that better. I don't know. That's just the way I have tried to start shifting my perspective to where, okay, we don't have one big problem. We have a few little problems that are easy adjustments. And it's a difference maker when you break it down like that. Makes you feel like you got more problems, but it makes a difference for the overall weight of it.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Well, Ida, just rolling through, and I know you're already running. Do you just anticipate that it's not going to let a pace off, or do you think that the weather will eventually catch up with itself out there?
I don't know. I do hope we receive moisture, but for my schedule's sake, more so I do hope we receive moisture because our growers need it. My schedule, I would like to have a couple solid weeks where I can just get caught up, let the moisture come in.
Yes, sir.
I took more phone calls through the weekend, emailed last week. The trade show produced really well, like they always do. Our schedule's just getting stretched to where we're already middle to end of April, depending on weather and everything. So, yeah, man, we're just, like I tell my guys, we're running while we can. Unfortunate to where we really haven't from the very beginning, from when we started. It needs to get done. And sometimes we take those days and we just go through our equipment and make sure everything's running to 100%. Then we're right back to applicating. So yeah, I hope it stays. Business is good. I sometimes I wish that maybe we'd slow down a little bit, but at the same time, I don't want to wish that too much because you never want to be slow. It's fun to make money. It's fun to meet new customers. And for my guys, like we don't got nothing to do, maybe here's a layoff for a couple weeks or a month or something. I don't ever want to have to do that. So far we haven't, and I hope we continue to still get the phone calls. And I think we will. We do a really good job. I train my guys to do the very best job they know how to do. And that's, I think, why the phone keeps ringing.
Yeah. I think there's a lot to it. Customers can absolutely tell when you care and are passionate about doing a good job, to your point about maybe some of the reasons that people didn't make it through last year, and between capital cost and then you can train them up, but if your team don't see the passion that the boss brings to the job, they're not going to operate with that passion either. So that's all starts right there with leadership. Casey, I'll let you get back to work out there, man. I appreciate your time so much over the last couple of weeks. I have really enjoyed this. This is very informative. I know the listeners will get something out of it. And yeah, man, I appreciate you very much. And we'll talk to you soon, brother.
Okay. Hey, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for reaching out and bringing me on. It's been fun to just chop it up with you. And yeah, I look forward to doing it again.
Sounds good, brother. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you, Casey.
You betcha. We'll see you, bud.
See ya. That was Casey Seber of Mountain Meadow Ag Company. He's got a seed and drone business in Loa, Utah. I appreciate his time and coming on. If you have a story that you want to share with this platform, if you have someone that you feel would be a great fit that you want to hear more of a conversation of, have them reach out. The scheduling calendar is right there in aroundthefencepost.com, and we can have a conversation and see if it fits out where we're going. And we'd love to have that connection made. Thank you for listening, and talk to you next week.
As we wrap up today's episode, we hope something we shared helped you, challenged you, or gave you a new perspective. If even one moment stood out, please share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. That's how this community grows, one conversation at a time. You can find us as Around the Fence Post on Facebook and Wet Meadow Seed on Facebook and Instagram. We appreciate you being here. We'll see you next time, Around the Fence Post.